Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 436.
Let it go.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Brian wants to talk money, Jeff gets gutsy, and Zachary tells us to cease and desist. Plus, we have tales of horror and amazement. Tom gives me a pop quiz on shopping, and we come together to ask how much you need to play a game before you're okay with it leaving your collection. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Elsa to my Anna, Tom Vassell.
Why do you get to be the nice one?
Because I wrote the intro?
That happens with a lot of our intros, I've noticed.
I get to be the quirky, nice one that everybody likes.
Can I be Olaf?
Okay, fine.
I like Olaf.
The Olaf to my Anna, Tom Vassell.
Yeah! Now we're talking.
You're gonna melt.
Have you seen the little Christmas, the birthday-themed short?
Oh, I haven't because we got the DVD for the kids for Christmas, and so we haven't watched it yet.
Well, there's just a line in it where she has a cold, and she says, "A cold never bothers me anyway," which cracks me up every time I hear it. I don't know why.
That's funny.
Is Let It Go a Christmas song? Because it's in some of my Christmas rotation.
Is it? It's about snow.
I guess.
It shouldn't be.
Well, I have this new Christmas album that I got from, it's a group called Pentomix, which is an a cappella type group, I think. They don't, not all their songs.
It's not Pentatonics, is it?
That might be it too.
Yeah, Pentatonics is an a cappella group.
Right. So anyway, it's them. And Let It Go is one of the songs on their Christmas CD.
Really?
I will say that their Christmas CD has rocketed to be one of my favorite.
I know they did like a 2015 edition of one of their older Christmas albums, and maybe that's one of the new ones, because I think I've got all of their Christmas stuff.
Maybe I don't even have the right name.
It could be Straight No Chaser. They did Let It Go.
No, it's totally not Straight No Chaser, because they're very obvious who they are.
Yes.
My kids really like their 12 Days of Christmas thing.
Yes.
As does the world, probably.
Yes.
Hey, folks, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
It's getting really close to Christmas.
We are.
Oh, I thought that was a sentence there. You said we are. Like, we are what?
We are very close to Christmas.
That's true. And so, if you've missed it, we have a Christmas shopping guide, if you're like running out of things, on our video channel. So you can check that out. It's on the dicetower.com on our YouTube page. Don't forget, in our next episode after this one and the one after that, our two next episodes, we're going to go over the year 2015 and tell you all about it, whether it was good or bad.
Boy, I have to go back and look at my notes.
Why?
Good or bad? Well, I have to find out if it was good or bad.
I'll tell you, sir. Don't forget all of the other stuff that we run through the Dice Tower, including Dice Tower News. If you want to find out what's going on in the board game world, Dice Tower News is your place for up-to-the-date information about who's coming out with what game and when. Don't forget, it's only a few more episodes, and Dice Tower Deluxe is going to shut down. So if you are subscribing to that, you are going to want to change over to the main Dice Tower channel very soon for your subscriptions.
Please do. There's going to be some angry messages. How come the Dice Tower hasn't put out an episode in the last, 6 weeks? I can see it. It's going to happen.
We also want to thank some of the folks who supported us in our Kickstarter. Mr. Nelson says, "Welcome to the world of board games. To the students at his board game club.
Oh, that's cool.
Thanks for being respectful and enthusiastic," he says.
Samuel says, "Thanks to my wife Amy for marrying me, even when she knew how much of a nerd I was."
So say we all. So say we all. Well, it has been gaming times everywhere. I've had a chance to play a lot of games lately.
Good.
But so has Eric, so I'm going to let Eric go first.
Why not? One of my goals at Essen was to try and find some games that didn't have a bunch of hype. I want to find some little stuff I could easily fit in my suitcase for one thing, but that would be stuff I couldn't find over here. And one of the games I found is called Ice and the Sky. It's based on a French film that I had never heard of. It's a documentary, actually, the film. In Ice and the Sky, you are cooperatively trying to play cards into a grid that represents 3 directions. There's north, east, and west, and also land, water, and sky. So you've got a 3x3 grid. And you start out with some cards in the grid, and you are playing cards into the grid. You can see the cards you have to play, but you also have goals. You will have 2 cards, one that represents a vertical axis, or either a vertical axis or a horizontal axis, and the other is a number that you need all the cards in that column or row to add up to. And so those are facing outward, kind of like Hanabi. You're facing your teammates. And after you play a card, your teammates will tell you you have achieved your objective or you are not currently achieving your objective. And so when that status changes, you have to try and suss out what you did that makes you now good or bad. You also have carbon icons that you're trying to cover up. So as you're playing cards to this grid, you're also trying to cover up the carbon icons. And at the end of a round, when you've played all of your cards, you will total up how many of you have achieved your objectives. Those are worth points. And if you have any carbon still on the board, you will remove a multiplier card. You start out with 3, so eventually at the end of the game, you will multiply your score by this carbon multiplier. But as you have more carbon, the ice caps start to melt and your multiplier goes down. As the rounds go on, that becomes more difficult because the first round has 2 carbon symbols that you need to cover up, and the next round has 3, and the final round has 4 that you're trying to cover up. So you're trying to end up with a positive score with a good multiplier, and that determines how well you have done in saving the planet and playing your cards into a grid. This is tricky. This is not an easy game. You're trying to achieve your goals, communicate with your teammates, suss out what you've got, as well as covering up these carbon cards and doing this in a way that tries to achieve goals and without breaking the other people's goals. It's hard. For being a small box, it's a really small box game, just sort of a double deck box. And I liked it. It's a good challenge. There's another way to ratchet up the difficulty if you want, but I would need to be much better at the game before I do that. I liked it. I don't know how you get it because it's published by a French publisher, and it's about these licensed games can be tricky sometimes. Ice in the Sky, thumbs up from me. Good luck finding it.
Well, thank you for that very uplifting statement there at the end.
Yeah.
10 to Kill is a game that claims to be played in 10 minutes, and it actually does play in 10 minutes. It uses a game in which characters are animals who are also hitmen. And these animals, they look like humans with animal heads, actually. But
okay,
whatever. You have this big city, and you some city blocks, some tiles you put together, and you put a random person on each of these. Then you draw a tile, and it tells you who you are. That's the hitman you are. Then you draw 3 more tiles, and it tells you those are people you need to take out. So then players just start doing things. You take an action in your turn. You can move one person to any other spot. You can kill someone if your assassin can possibly kill them. And you have 3 weapons. You have a knife. So if you're on the same spot as someone else, you just take them off. You have a gun, which you can shoot someone adjacent to you. And you have a sniper rifle where you can shoot anyone in the same row or column as you, as long as you're standing on a spot that a sniper rifle can be used from. Okay. The thing is, when you kill someone, you don't say what weapon was used. Apparently everyone's kind of dumb. Was that a knife wound or a bullet wound? I don't know.
I don't know. So you just done.
It could have been a gun that shot knives.
Yes.
And then there's also a bunch of police people that you can put on the board as your action. So you are trying to shoot your own targets, although you could shoot other people's, although you'll lose a point for each incorrect person, although you'll get a lot of points if you shoot one of the other people's hitmen. You also put these police officers on the board. If a police officer's in the same spot as you can't knife people.
Okay,
If a
makes
police
sense.
if anyone's in the same spot as you, you can't shoot at all. So when you take someone off the board, we all sit there and go, okay, who could have killed that person? Well, it's those 4 people. Well, now I know your hitman's one of those 4 people. And you can accuse someone of being a hitman if you have a police officer in the same space as them, for which you get some points, but not as many points as killing them. When someone finishes their thing, they've killed all 3 of their hitmen, their targets, the game's over, or if everyone has been either killed or accused successfully. It really is 10 minutes. It reminds me a lot of Rumble in the House or Rumble in the Dungeon.
Yeah.
But I think I like it better just because there's a lot more going on with the different weapons. It sounds a little bit more complex than it really is. It just like makes it a little bit more puzzly. And then there's the police officers running around. I don't know. I had a lot of fun playing this one. That's 10 to kill. The number 10, the word 2, T-O, and kill.
Got it. Next up for me is the Prodigals Club. This is sort of the sequel to It's the sequel to Last Will, and what's interesting is that there are different modules and ways that you earn status in this or try and get rid of your status, and you can take the economic status module out of the Prodigals Club and just plug in Last Will and play it that way. I didn't do that. I just played Prodigals Club straight up. There are 3 aspects in Prodigals Club. You've got your economic status, you've got your political status, and you've got your social status. And these are all marked with different tracks, and you're trying to get all of them as low as you possibly can because your highest status at the end of the game is what is your ultimate score. Your economic status is much like Last Will, sort of the stuff you've got, the animals and the property and the goods that you have, the money you have on hand. Your political capital is based on votes and just acting like a buffoon and annoying people is how you manage to make that go down. And your social status is plotted on this crazy. You got 2 men and 2 women on this board, and you're trying to crisscross them around with different moves and get them lower on this track. But then there's this dowager that sort of watches over everything, and there's some sort of status that at the end of every round, she will increase the status of everybody who follows a certain rule. So maybe she ignores one of the 3 columns, and the other 2 columns are going to move up one. So you have to sort of maneuver these guys around on this track to avoid following her rules so that you don't earn status back. It's hard to focus on everything because there's just so much to do, and it's a little overwhelming, but I really enjoyed this. I think I like this better than Last Will. That track is a little fiddly because you'll be looking at it and trying to figure out how to make things work, and then Tom will come over and say bye to everyone and lean on your track. And then when he gets up, he takes all the tokens with him, and they all fall on the floor. And then you have to remember where they were.
Okay, I think it was like 3 tokens.
3 out of the 4. Anyway, I really did enjoy the game. It's
I don't even remember this.
It's tricky, and as long as you keep Tom 10 feet away, it's not too difficult to figure out what's going on.
Did you not get him back in the right spots?
I figured it out.
I don't think that was a story worth telling.
Sure it was.
It seems like a boring story.
Oh, it was hilarious. Especially that you didn't even notice.
What was I doing?
You were saying goodbye. You're like, I'm out of here. You guys keep playing your game.
Was I going home, like, for good?
Yeah, you were going to the room to pack, and you were going to leave the next morning.
Well, that was worth coming over and saying.
It was.
It was a sentimental moment.
It was. It was emotional.
You've cheapened it.
Yes.
Floating Market is from Eagle Griffin Games. In Floating Market, each player gets 4 dice, a 4-sided, a 6-sided, a 8-sided, a 4, I'm trying to remember now, 4, 6, 10, and 12-sided die.
Okay.
Oh, you get another 6-sided dice, but it's white. It's boring. The rest are kind of cool in your color, like translucent of your color, so your blue, green, yellow, pink, whatever. The white die is a negative die. So on your turn, you have some workers, and you're going to put these workers out on either a boat or onto a building. Now, the boats are great because if you're on the right boat at the end of a round, you'll get a piece of fruit. The first person to get 5 fruit is the winner of the game. To put out your first worker, you must take one of your 5 dice and throw it into a dice pool. It's a communal dice pool. These buildings that are on the outside that you can put workers in, they can also mess with the dice pool. You can add neutral dice to the dice pool. You can add tokens to the dice pool, let's say +2 or +4 or -2, different things to the dice pool. After everyone's placed all their workers, you roll all the dice in the dice pool, and that number determines which boat gets a piece of fruit. The boats next to the boat that you roll each get 2 coins, and you can use coins later on to just buy the fruit that you need. This game really reminds me of Manila. It has a lot of the same aspects. I really like the components. I like the dice, although the box I got had misprinted D4s. I didn't know that was possible.
Wow.
So it came like a bag attached to the box. Please use these D4s instead. But it is interesting, right? You're manipulating these numbers to try to get it. This boat here might say, if the number is between 20 and 23, you'll get this fruit. Okay, then that's definitely the boat that I want to be on, because I'm pretty sure these dice are going to be between 20 and 23. And that's the problem with the game. I like it. It's a fun game, actually. But you really have no idea where those dice are going to go. You can make a somewhat educated guess, like take an average of all the dice that are out there. Okay, there's a 12-sided die that would probably roll 6. There's a 6-sided die, so that's a 3. There's a 4-sided die, that's a 2, and add all those numbers together. Okay, that's where it's going to land. And as Jeff will tell you, the more dice you roll, the more average that roll is going to be and be correct. But it still can be all over the place. It just is. So the game is fun, but it feels like you're doing all this manipulation and then just hoping it hits you anyway. I like the game, and I would play it again, but I would be hesitant to say that it's that good of a game because of that. And, that's a lot of math with all these dice that you're throwing. Okay, I'm rolling 2 12s, a 10, 2 6s, 2 -6s, and roll all this and add the number together. It's 18, and someone's like, yeah, that's my number, bingo, or whatever. So it's an interesting game, but I think it's a little loose for what it could be. I wonder if they could have tightened all the numbers and made the numbers smaller, been a little bit easier to figure out where everything is. But that's Floating Market.
Pirate Den is a new bluffing/bidding game from Crash Games. You have a pirate-themed card in front of you. You have a little character, and you have your deck that's full of action cards that you can try and use. And these action cards, you'll put one down in front of you at the very beginning of a round. You will have drawn gems out of a big bag. You know how often some of the draw bags in games are too small for gamer fists? This is not the case with this game. This is like an extra wide cloth bag, really nice, that you're pulling gems out of in 3 colors. You'll put a bunch out. In a 3-player game, it's 9 gems. I think it's then 12 for a 4-player, 15 per round for a 5-player game. And you sort them into the colors. So you'll have a pile of red, a pile of yellow, pile of blue, gems up for grabs, and everybody will secretly choose one of their action cards, and you flip them up. And there's sort of a priority order to these things. The 0 priority is banking gems you already have. If you get 5 of the same color, you can turn them into gold nuggets, treasure tokens. It's like burying your treasure. And once somebody does 5 of those, the game's over. So, you want to bank your treasure if you've got it. The level 1 cards simply take all of the gems of one color, and they're color-coded. So you have a yellow, a red, and a blue one, and whatever you choose, that's what you're going to take. If you have the same action as somebody else, then you split the gems. The level 2 cards take 2 different colors. And again, it tells you which ones you're going to take, if those are still on the board. The level 3 card takes everything that's left, if there's anything still there. And the level 4 card, the last ones to go, steal from opponents. So if I play the level 4 yellow, whoever has the most yellow, I take it all. Wah! So you're looking around the board, what are they going to take? What am I going to do? If I steal from them, are they going to steal from me first? All this crazy stuff. Or if I think they're going to take those gems, do I steal from them so that then I have the gems and can bury the gems? Or he's about to bury his gems, so I'm not going to steal from him because those gems won't be there anymore. But then if he thinks I'm going to do that, maybe he grabs more gems so he can bury more gems. This is that kind of game. It works better with more people. We played it with 3. And in a couple of rounds, if 2 people do a bury action, then the third person can just clean up. Or if they don't do that, then you have a whole bunch of gems in the middle. I almost wanted to have a 4th or a 5th player just to add more chaos, more actions, more churning of the gems into the pot. It's solid. For this type of very accessible, bluffing, bidding game, it works very well. Is that the kind of game I enjoy? No. But for this genre, I could see it working very well and being easy to understand with all different types of audiences. So thumbs up. It's just not one I think is going to stick around simply due to personal taste. Pirate Den from Crash Games.
This game has a bit of a sordid history behind it.
Really?
Yeah, this was a game that was kickstarted. I forget the name of the company, but was from Bojan Radakovic. And after the kickstarting and all the money came in, he basically said, sorry, if I publish this game the way it's supposed to be, I won't make a profit, so it ain't happening.
Oh.
And so Crash Games came in and rescued it and published it, and I believe they sent it out to the backers, which was very nice of them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I have a copy. I have not played it yet, but your description has made me want to play it.
Okay.
I will foil you. Well, you said it wasn't your type of game.
No. There's lots of opportunity to steal from each other.
All right, let's jump to Kemet Seti. This is the expansion for Kemet, which, as everyone knows, is one of the greatest games ever designed. This adds a black pyramid to those who have played the game. The game comes with red, white, and blue pyramids. Nothing behind the red, white, and blue, but just 3 different colors. The black pyramid adds another whole group of tiles that do all sorts of things. And at the beginning of the game, you have to pick which 3 colors. So I might say, I'm going to use black, red, and white, but not blue. And so you're taking one color out of contention for you, although you can still build tiles of that color if you go capture someone else's pyramid. So there's new tiles, there's new monsters, there's also a whole new section of priests where every time you move priests down this track and they'll give you all sorts of items you can use, or the priests can actually show up on the board and act like customizable monsters. So there's a lot of cool stuff. I really like the expansion. I love the base game, and more stuff makes me happy. So get it if you like Kemet. If you don't, it's not going to change your mind, but that's Kemet Seti.
Okay. Fidelitas is the last game I want to talk about today. This is from Jason Kotarski and Philip Dewberry. It is a card game with like a row of businesses. You'll have a wharf on one side and a castle on the other side, and some cards that represent various businesses along a path leading from one to the other. And each card, the way you lay them out, you've got like a blacksmith's shop on one side and a library on the other side. And personality cards will be played to this as a starting setup. You'll play 1 to each of these locations. So 10 are laid out at the beginning of the game. The object is to achieve these goal cards. You're dealt 2 at the beginning. You can achieve more. You can get more through various means. You can also cycle through them. If you don't like this particular goal, you can get rid of it and draw a new one by visiting the tavern. Each of these personalities has a coat of arms. They belong to a guild. They're part of a suit, as it were. And many of these goals have you trying to manipulate the characters on the board so that they cluster in certain locations, maybe get multiples of a particular guild in one location or 4 different guilds in one location. And then you will score, and the object is to get to a certain number of points based on the number of players. So you will play a card from your hand, also one of these personality cards. If the symbol matches one of the symbols on the board, many of these locations have guild symbols on them, you have to play to that guild location, one or the other on either side of the street. And then you do what it says on the card, and many of these will manipulate the cards that are on the board. There's a soldier that says, if there's 3 soldiers, you remove them, you clear the entire location, and just empty that house. But if there isn't 3, you can take one character from where you played the soldier and kick him out, stick him somewhere else. And then, if you manage to have achieved one of these goals, you score them and draw back up to your draw a card. It's pretty chaotic. It's interesting puzzle seeing how am I going to manipulate things to get things where I want to go. How do I use the cards I have? And you only have a couple until you manage to draw more somehow to get the board to look the way I want it to score these things. However, because you don't know what anybody else is trying to do, actions you take are likely going to help or hinder them, but you don't know which you're doing at any given moment. So you may totally be setting up the person to your left to score their goals at the end of a turn without them having to do anything, or making it super easy for them to do it, or totally messing them up and you don't even know that that's what you're doing. Also, the point spread on some of these goals, I think they can range from 1 point to 4 points. And some of them, I'm not sure why a 2-point goal is more difficult to achieve than a 1-point goal. Some of them are really easy. Somebody scored 2 points on the first turn without having to do hardly anything. And then other 1-point goals were extremely difficult to make it all work. So I'm not quite sure how the point spread was determined. It's a little too chaotic for my taste. I don't think this is a recommendation. It was interesting. I liked trying to manipulate everything. But the lack of control for a game that it's light, it was over relatively quickly. It wasn't bad, but it didn't quite. It pushed the wrong buttons for me. Fidelitas.
Interesting. I think we have pretty much the same thoughts about it, except I come out saying it's not a bad little light game.
Yeah.
And you're kind of turning away from it a little.
A little. I'd play it again. It's a challenge.
The next game I want to talk about is Safranito. This is a game from Zoc. I saw it at GrandCon, and I was like, what is this game you guys are playing? Because it was an economic game where you were trying to buy and sell spices, and you did this by throwing discs onto a board. I was there. These are big, heavy poker chips with holes in the middle that have money amounts on the side of them. And each turn you're throwing them on the board, and where they land will either give you actions or will, if it lands on a spice, determine how much you can buy that spice for. And the higher amounts always get to buy spices first, but you might want to throw a lower amount disc so that you can get a better price, but there may not be enough of those spices to be there. Or you might just throw your discs and knock other people's discs all over the place because it's a dexterity game. It's really intriguing. The way the game works is you have to finish these recipes that need a certain number of spices. So you just have to get these spices and get a certain number of recipe cards, you win. But you get these spices and you can buy and sell them for money by throwing chips on the different boards. And, I bought, cumin for 30 and now I'm going to sell it for 60 so that I can buy 2 cinnamons and I'll use those in a recipe. Really fun game. It's kind of a niche thing though, right? It's like, hey, would you like to play an economic game with a bit of dexterity thrown in? Ooh.
Yeah.
Wait, there's a guy in the back corner. He raised his hand. He wants to do it. Who else? Who else? Well, I'm the guy in the back corner raising his hand because I thought it was a fun combo. But I certainly could see how it's not everyone's taste. Since we're on weird games, I also had another game from Zoc called Im Arosa. Is that correct, Eric?
Sounds good to me.
Have you played this one, Eric?
No.
Oh, I know you would like this one. This is that game. You may have seen it where the box comes out and there's more boxes inside and you stack and make a skyscraper. And then you drop cubes down the hole in the middle of the skyscraper.
Oh, yes.
And then you have to guess where they landed, what floor they're on. By listening to them fall. That's basically it. You're like, because there's a murder's happened on one of the floors and you're trying to figure out who the suspects are. So I'm like, Laura has 3 cubes. Or, I don't have to say the number. Laura has cubes on floor 6. I lift up and there is Laura's cubes there. Ha, ha, ha. I get some points. Or she gets some points. You don't want points. Or maybe she doesn't have cubes there. Then I got to throw another one of my guys in the tower. It's really a simple game, but really fun in that regard. So that is MordimArosa.
Cool.
Hey, let's talk about money.
Money, money, money.
Welcome to Cult of the Old, where I discuss games we may have forgotten about, or games that failed miserably, but still had some good mechanics in them. This is Brian Counter, and everything I do is counterproductive. Today, I wanted to talk about money. That's money with the exclamation point in the title. Developed in 1999 by Reiner Knizia. Rated rank 6.57 and 1059 on Board Game Geek. Money is a simple set collection and bidding game using world currency as cards, and the cards depict somewhat realistic-looking currencies from around the world, from the dollar to the pound to the ruble and so on and so on. At the beginning of a round, cards will go off to the left and the right side of the deck, and then players will bid, using cards from their hands in whatever denominations they choose. The highest bidder gets their choice of which side of the deck they will take, but instead of discarding, what they do is they put their bid on the table to replace the stack that they took. Then the second player's bid can take the other stack, or can even take what was just bid and placed in the table. And this continues until everybody gets something, even the person with the lowest bid gets something. Of course, they may be spending more than they get back by the time that it's done. And play pretty much continues that way until the end of the round. When you score, if you have a particular currency and that amount is under $100, you don't score that, if I remember properly. And each denomination has 3 20s, 3 30s, a 40, 50, and 60. And you get bonuses if you have all the 20s or all the 30s of 100 points. And so for a complete set of an entire currency, you can score up to 500, and that's pretty much it. I would say, though, if I had one critique, it's that if people go cheap and all people are bidding pretty low, the cards don't change hands much, and that can make it a pretty boring game. So that's what keeps it from being an excellent game, though I think it's well worth looking into if any of this sounds fun to you. It's up to the player to figure out what other people are trying to collect, because if 3 people are all going for the same currency and a 4th is going for a completely different one, they obviously have the edge, so you have to try and pay attention to those kinds of things. But past the cheapo thing killing this game, I think it can be fun.
And now, another tale of board gaming horror.
Oh my, that's horrific.
Gather round, children. Some time ago, I had a meetup for a board game trade initially set up on Board Game Geek. We decided to meet at a friendly local game store in an area between the two of us that I had yet to visit. I decided to arrive early and play some games from the library and peruse the store. After playing a few games, I decided to make a purchase as a thank you for the hospitality, since the employees taught my fiancée and me some games. I ended up getting Citadels! It just happened that the day we showed up was in fact open play day at this specific, friendly local game store. Knowing that the other person involved in the trade would not be set to arrive for an hour or so, I decided to open my new game and see if anyone would like to join us in our first play. One person offered to join, but didn't know how to play. At that point, a second person who had been sitting there quietly announced he knew how to play and would like to join. "It's one of my favorite games," he proclaimed. He seemed a bit socially and likely mentally hindered, but very friendly. I can get along with most anyone so long as they are good people, and odd behavior never bothered me. At this point, I feel I should explain that in addition to other traits, I'm a bit OCD. I sleeve most of my games, laminate player aids, etc. I'm also a total germaphobe, the kind of guy who will not even read a magazine in a waiting room. Hey, I don't know who touched them. Back to the story. I opened the game, and the fourth fella started to explain the game, and we got started. I first noticed things may be going wrong when he drew a card from the pile. He gripped it up, half crumpling the card. My heart started to sink, but I knew by this point it was not something he was doing intentionally, so I let it slide. When it came time to shuffle the roll cards, he picked them up and riffle-shuffled them. If I recall correctly, there are only about 8 cards, so you can imagine how they bent and also crumpled a bit due to the grip he had on them. No big deal, I can just sleeve this in solid-backed cards, I tried to justify to myself. Then it happened. From his pocket he pulled out a handkerchief. As he blew his nose, I noticed the handkerchief was not green, as I originally thought, just mostly green with spots where the original white was still visible. He blew his nose, then shoved the handkerchief back in his pocket and picked up his hand of cards. I think at this point I was visibly sweating. I then noticed my fiancée looking at me. She knows me, and I could see in her eyes she knew how I was feeling inside and was trying to figure out what would follow on the outside. I managed to hold it in. At this time I heard my name being called around the room. My trade had showed up. I excused myself to make the trade, then returned. I tried to finish the game as quickly as I could, and when over, the man said, "Want to play again?" I said it's getting late, and my lady and I are going to go get dinner. Thanked him for teaching us, placed the game in a plastic bag, washed my hands as if going to perform surgery, and promptly left. That game sat on my shelf in that bag for some time. I could never bring myself to play or even touch it again. I ended up donating it to a different, friendly local game store library, telling them the reason I was letting it go. Luckily, I did not like citadels! To this day, I have never even touched another copy, as any time that I get close, I have a flashback of that mostly green, originally white handkerchief. Now that's a reason not to like citadels.
Maybe we should have said, in case you're eating, don't listen to this segment.
There should have been a warning before that one. Retroactively, put down the sandwich.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So,
Brand new game. Brand new game.
I don't think I've run into that.
Oh, man. No.
All right. Well.
All right, this next segment worries me. What's going on?
No, it's just a normal segment. I just wanted to... I didn't want you to be prepared for it.
Yeah, that's what worries me.
No, it's just a time for a quiz of Eric. Not quiz, but here's what we're going to talk about now. Going shopping, because it's the Christmas season.
Sure.
Deck the halls. So I'm going to name some stores. And when you tell me what things you might buy in that store that have to do with board games.
Okay.
See, this isn't so bad, right?
Sure.
No, there's really no trick here. I'm just
Okay.
curious because I want to see if you line up with me when you go to different stores.
So this isn't a performance review.
That's already been done, sir.
Really? Oh, good.
When
I'll be
you were
getting
making
that next
fun of me
week.
for leaning on the board game as I was tenderly saying goodbye. But anyhow, okay, so we'll start with the stores that people usually go to. So we'll say the big box stores, Walmart, Target. You go to them. What do you do? Because I know, if you're like me, that you think about board games when you go to stores, at least a little.
Absolutely.
So what would you be looking for there board game-wise?
Well, first, I'll swing by the toy department, see what they've got on the shelf, see if they've actually put any designer games on the shelf, and lately, I've been pleasantly surprised. I will also swing by the craft section and maybe see if they have organizers. Actually, the craft section doesn't usually have the plastic, like Plano boxes, but they do have Ziploc bags. The fishing and tackle department will often have the Plano boxes, so I'll see if they have any interesting organizers that I could use for large box games that have lots of little bits.
All right. I actually do all those, except I don't always go through the craft section. I almost always check out the game section because you never know.
Never know.
You never know what might be there. It's just good to know. It reminds me, I used to have well, no, we'll get to that. Never mind. Okay, so you mentioned crafts. What about a craft store? I'm sure that, your wife is crafty.
Yep.
And is that the word? What is the word for that?
Yeah, crafty works.
That has another meaning. Well, anyhow.
That's true.
So like Michael's or what's the other one?
Joanne Fabrics, Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby, yeah.
Same thing. You're looking for storage stuff. Usually the beading section, jewelry section is going to have bags and plastic organizers. There's those plastic cups with lids that are very useful for various game storage. You might find beads or small components, markers for a less, lower price than you'd find in some other spots. That's about it for me.
You could tell Eric is a Euro gamer there because he didn't mention X-Acto knives and glue and paint.
That I did not.
But all that is also useful at a hobby store.
Yes.
One thing I found interesting at hobby stores is they often have like a wooden section.
Yep.
For people like making scrapbooks or like little wooden things. And sometimes you'll find some cool little wooden pieces there.
That is true, or maybe dollhouse components that can be used for, resources.
But, okay, so, and then sometimes they have a lot of the beads. And then, most importantly, at Hobby Lobby, they sell that, art kit that so many of the insert guys use they make inserts for it, for like collectible for the deck building games and such.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a very specific one. I believe that's only at Hobby Lobby. I know that because there's Michaels all around me and no Hobby Lobby, but I went out of my way to get one of these.
Okay. Yep.
All right, so that's that store. Now, I would say hardware store, but, well, I don't know if you ever go there.
On occasion. You're talking like big box hardware store or mom and pop hardware store?
We'll go big box because mom and pop's is...
I usually, I don't know if I can come up with anything, because usually I think of larger items being sold at like the Home Depots or Lowe's of the world. What could fit in a game box? I'm stumped, Tom.
Yeah, I've never found anything in there either.
Oh.
I was just hoping you
You're
had.
just hoping that I had some advice.
Here's what I get at the big box stores. I get the boxes at the hardware store. I get the boxes to put my games in when I take them to Dice Tower Con.
Okay.
Or shelving units. There you go.
Yeah, shelving units.
Even though I have really good shelving units, I always look at shelving units just in case.
Just in case. Maybe there's something better. Maybe you got to stay on top of this stuff.
I know. All right.
Well,
So
weren't you talking about
now?
moving a bunch of your games into the garage? So you'd want to have shelving units for that, right?
I did, and that's where I bought them.
Yeah.
At a hardware store. I bought those really cheap plastic ones that you can pop together.
Right.
Because the game should not be there that long. They should be in and out, although they're starting to stay there a little bit longer as time goes by. And I had one shelf, which has now expanded to 5 in the garage. And we used to be able to park our car in our garage. That is no longer possible.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, what do you want me to do?
I don't know.
So, there's that. All right, thrift store.
Ooh, well, obviously you're looking for the occasional game find. You never know when you might find a copy of the Saved by the Bell game, or Heartthrob, or a wrapped copy of Dominion that, somebody got as a gift and didn't know how to play, so they just donated it.
Okay. I
Yeah.
just flip the table? Are we on a different show?
We've switched. We've gone through the portal.
I always look for these games. I think that they're an interesting thing to find there. That's the thrift store is what everyone thinks of first to go to these. Also, it's a good place to find hats.
Sure. Not everyone requires one of those to play games, though.
All right, what about the mall?
Well, golly.
You never go to the mall?
Only at specific times of the year.
Your kids aren't old enough to want to go more often, probably.
That's probably what it is.
All right, so for the mall, you want to check out the toy store.
Right.
Because if you say you're going there at times of year, you're probably going there during a seasonal time
Yep.
where there is going to be a toy store there.
There will be a toy store, sometimes a game store, which is neat to see what the mainstream toy game stores have.
Right. And Radio Shack or whatever the little electronics store might have some things. There also might be a specialty store for like crafts, and you can find some little pieces there. You can like glance in the windows of Spencer's and see if there's a board game, but probably not one you'd want to be playing.
Not one you want to bring home, no.
Probably. Yeah, the mall's kind of a dearth but they usually have these camera stores, so I go look at video cameras for recording videos.
I'm more interested in the food court.
That's my answer, Eric. All right, Toys R Us.
Same thing, go by the toy section. Check out the Legos.
The Legos. Well, actually, as I say, sometimes I check out like the boys like G.I. Joe section. You might find like little pieces, or like even like farms, farming toys. You might find a bunch of little pigs or something. You're like, ooh, these can fit in a game somewhere.
Perhaps.
All right, I've run out of stores. That's the end of the quiz. Good job. You passed.
Good. That's our shopping guide. That's our 2015 holiday shopping guide from the Dice Tower.
Well, no, I mean, maybe. I guess I just every time I go to a store, I think, is there something here about board games I can do?
Well, the one that always happens for me is visiting the Container Store.
Oh, the Container Store, I believe, was built by a board gamer.
It has to have been.
I mean, I go in that store. I go in there for a very specific purpose, to get some sort of container for my board games. And I will say that I probably have spent more money there than I spent at any furniture store. My house is full of stuff from that Container Store, and every time I go there, I don't know that I ever left there with nothing.
Yeah, there's always possibilities.
I don't actually go there unless I'm planning to buy something because it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I walk in and I'm like, wow. Oh, wow, look at that. That would fit in a game box.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched my videos and you see all those little drawers with all the pieces, those are all from the Container Store.
Yeah.
I just love that place. The crate that I carry my stuff to game sessions comes from the Container Store.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's get to Jeff. You've all been waiting for him anyway. He said this was his last of the year, which sounded dramatic, except we're actually not recording any more episodes
that's
this year.
it. We didn't ask for any more.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's time for Game Tech with Jeff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
In episode 432 of the Dice Tower, Eric reviewed a game called Gutsy, which is about microbial communities and was published by the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. Recently, I had an opportunity to speak with Barry Joseph, who is the Associate Director of Digital Learning at the museum, about why they chose games and kind of their history in using board and card games as part of museum exhibits.
Actually, the first time we made a card game associated with an exhibit was spring of 2014. We had a new exhibit at the time about pterosaurs. Those are the flying reptiles from the time of the dinosaur. And we thought it would be interesting to figure out how game mechanics could help visitors to the museum and people who just download it online understand both pterosaur food chains and also this general question of locomotion. You know, how do pterosaurs take off? How do they fly? How do they land? So working through an after-school program with high school students, game designer Nick Fortuno, and our exhibitions department, which was creating this incredible content for the exhibit, we put together this game called Pterosaurs. We were inspired by a science-based card game called Philo, which was actually done by a Vancouver scientist inspired by Pokemon that crowdsourced the whole thing. And so working with them, we adapted that mechanic and made this unique thing about pterosaurs, and we offered it in the store. We had no idea if anyone was going to be interested. We didn't know if people would just walk past it, if they would, buy it to extend their experience at the museum or give it to their grandkids. And we found it was a hot seller. People really liked it. And it wasn't only available in the store, but also on Ology, which is our youth-oriented component of our website. So anybody could download it for free.
The sales of the Pterodon game were way beyond their expectations, and so they decided to go back and look at future exhibits and see if this was something that they could kind of incorporate going forward in perhaps even a more sophisticated way. The next exhibit that happened to be coming up was about microbiomes, and that turned into the game Gutsy.
So this time around, we just opened up, just last weekend, a new exhibit called Inside You, which is all about the secret world inside you, about our microbiomes on our bodies and around our bodies. And it just so happened that the curator, one of the two curators of the exhibits, who's also a scientist here at the museum, Susan Perkins, loves indie games. So we had thought that maybe we would try what we did with pterosaurs with this exhibit as well, work with a group of students to co-develop something. But it also turned out that she had her own thoughts and ideas because she loves indie games. And I think she was on an airplane ride to a conference, and she came back with an idea for a nice mechanic for simulating the gut microbes in our bodies and how important it is to have a diverse gut microbe. I think it was on episode 100 when Ryan said, "Poop is always funny." Now with our new card game, it can be educational as well, and you can do fecal transplants with your family and friends.
One of the interesting things that Barry told me about that I hadn't really thought of is that in a museum exhibit, you're limited by the fact that you don't want people to spend more than a couple of minutes at any given exhibit. You want to keep things moving, flowing, people moving through. And a board game is a little bit different.
When you think about what you can do with a card game or a board game, is you get to slow down at home, not be distracted by all these different interesting things that are grabbing your attention to make you be inspired by something new in science, and focus on one thing and go deeper.
One of the challenges in designing a game for kind of a specific educational purpose like this is how much do you emphasize kind of the educational aspects versus the entertainment aspects. So that was one of the things that the team at the American Museum of Natural History wrestled with as well.
I think you're right to point out that the theme is there in a way that never gets in the way of the gameplay, and that it's there as in many ways as an option for those who want to go deeper, say if you want to read the flavor text. But we would never make a game where that's all that there was. The core mechanic of the game, the thing the players do, the system of the game, is replicating the sign system that the game is all about. So even if players don't read that flavor text, if they don't distinguish between the card called Bacteroidetes versus Firmicutes, they are still learning about a system and how the elements of that system interact in a way that replicates something in the real world.
I hope that you enjoyed these excerpts from my interview with Barry Joseph. If you'd like to hear the full 20-minute discussion, as well as a discussion with Eric Teo from the Push Your Luck podcast, who is also involved in the game design, please check out the Ludology podcast, specifically the Game Tech Classic episode 116. This is Jeff Engelstein with Game Tech.
Tales of Amazement. I returned from home from work and picking up the kids, looking forward to a fun evening that could possibly include some gaming. As I was preparing their school lunches for the next day, I went down to the basement fridge to get some cucumbers. I had not taken 3 steps across the basement floor when my socks got soaked. My basement was flooded. After looking around to assess the situation, realizing that about 3/4 of my basement floor was covered in about an inch of water, my mind was racing. Who to call first? Should I try to contain the water? What to do with the kids while I dealt with this? Then I remembered. I have games in the basement. Games on shelves I built. Too many games for the shelves I built, which is why some of them were on the floor. But not only that, but I had just received a shipment of games the previous week that I had left there, including a brand new black box edition of Star Wars Risk. I moved through the water in my wet socks and pants to survey the damage. I saw the rug that was soaked, saw the kids' drawings that would have to be thrown out, and rounded the corner to see that the water had stopped less than a foot from my stack of games. They were completely dry. After that, I kicked into gear, went and got some towels, and contained the pool of water so it couldn't spread any further. As I'm writing this, I'm waiting for the contractor to come to fix the damage, but at least I know that my games will remain dry. Huzzah!
See, I debated having Eric read this in the Tale of Horror voice. So that people will be sitting there going, No!
Yeah, I was like, this is the wrong voice for this. What's going to happen? That's what we call a silver lining.
Water is like the biggest enemy. I'm even worried sometimes when I'm carrying a board game and it starts raining.
Oh.
And you're like, okay, must walk faster. You're covering the board game with your shirt.
Oh, yeah. I've done the stoop walk as I'm covering my bag with. And then you get into the car and you're trying to wipe it down so that you don't get, raindrops marring the surface of the box.
I have never actually had rain ruin a game that I was carrying.
No.
And I live in Florida, but it feels like it could happen.
The possibility's there. I'm sure that there are some tales of horror on that front.
We'll get them now, Eric. All right, let's move on.
And now, the ins and outs of forming a board game group with Dan Hughes.
Hello, Dan Hughes here from the Noble Order of Huddersfield Board Gamers. I'm here to continue my ongoing series about how to set up your own board gaming club. Today, I'm going to be talking about venues. When choosing a location to host your club, there's a few essentials that you need to bear in mind. The venue needs to be consistent in its availability. It's no use if it's only available on Tuesday one week, Wednesday the week after, and Sunday the week after that. If you start switching around times and dates and places, your members aren't going to know where they stand. The venue also has to have enough space to accommodate you all, and certainly enough tables and chairs. And the tables need to be big enough as well. There's nothing worse than trying to play an epic game of Railways of the World, all crammed round a tiny table, and everyone living in fear of accidentally knocking the board and sending it flying across the room. Also, there needs to be adequate lighting. Soft and subtle mood lighting in a pub is all very well for a romantic evening for two, but it's no good if you're trying to differentiate between your colours of your pieces in Ave Caesar. There are some other things as well that may be not essential, but are quite desirable in a venue. Good parking and good links to public transport so people can actually get to the venue. And also, you want to hold your game sessions in areas where people feel comfortable walking around, particularly if it's at night. The last thing you want when stepping out into the street is to be worried about someone mugging you and taking your copy of Bonanza. So we're looking for somewhere safe, somewhere with lots of space, enough tables and well lit. And to be frank, there's probably dozens of places like that within your local area. You just need to be able to find them. In my experience, gaming venues come in 3 different flavours. You've got your pubs and restaurants, your community, church and village halls, and then you've got your gaming stores. And each has their own advantages and disadvantages. In my local area, we're blessed with a number of different board gaming clubs, and they all use different types of venues. Over in Halifax, they meet at a pub, and pubs are great places to meet. They're open late, they've got food and drink readily available, and best of all, they usually don't charge you to use their space. There is an expectation, however, that people will buy something while they're there. And also, you can occasionally get the odd, slightly inebriated person wandering into the back room, wondering what on earth's going on with all these cubes and counters everywhere, and being slightly put out that there's a game of Sabutio going on the pool table. Over the hill in Oldham, they meet in a church hall, and this seems to work really great for them. It's bright, it's airy, there's loads of tables, and there's tea and coffee making facilities just next door. The only downside is they have to pay a room hire, and it's a set rate. It's not dependent on how many people turn up. Now, normally that's not an issue. People who come along throw £3 into the kitty, and the rent gets covered. But in the summer holidays, when there aren't so many people around, the organisers risk being out of pocket themselves if they don't get enough members through the door. Now in Huddersfield, we meet at a local game store, IQ Games. We pay £3 per person who turns up, and for that, we get use of the space and also access to their games library. Some local game stores will host games groups for free. However, if they do that, there probably will be an expectation that the group will spend their money there too, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on their prices. Another aspect of gaming at a game store, which can be positive and negative, is the fact that this store is likely to have a very geeky type of atmosphere. That can be great for those into the scene and makes people feel right at home. However, if the geeky ambiance is too strong, it may make some people who don't quite see themselves as part of that scene feel quite uncomfortable or even intimidated. Fortunately, aside from the odd magic poster with a scantily clad woman on it, the game store where we meet isn't that bad really. And that about wraps it up for me today. I'm aware some of the things I said may be a little bit United Kingdom centric, so if you've got any opinions or insights into board gaming venues, why not come over to the Dice Tower Guild on Board Game Geek and let me know about them. Thanks for listening.
And now, time for some legal moves with Zachary Strebeck. Zachary is a California lawyer, so what he says may not apply in all jurisdictions. Also, this is not legal advice, so please consult a professional if you plan to take action.
Hello, I'm Zachary Strebeck, and this is Legal Moves. Today, we're going to talk about a situation that many game developers have either dealt with or they know of someone who has. I'm talking about receiving a cease and desist letter. For many developers, you put your product out there on the marketplace with a shiny new name, hoping that consumers will buy it and you'll turn a profit. However, one thing you're usually not expecting is to receive a letter from a law firm. In most cases, these letters accuse you of infringing on someone else's trademarks. They tell you that you must comply with the demands of the letter or else further legal action is going to be taken. These things can be pretty scary. I know, I've both written them and received them. So what do you do if you receive one of these letters? First, I wouldn't go it alone. Get a lawyer to help you. The internet and other game developers are full of misinformation about intellectual property law in particular. It's actually a little disturbing how wrong some people are. So rather than relying on that potentially incorrect information, have a lawyer read the letter and investigate the 2 trademarks. As an aside, you probably should have had a lawyer check out your game name and your company name before you start advertising your game, but that's a topic for another show. So if I have a client who's received a trademark cease and desist letter, the first thing I'm going to do is look at the 2 trademarks at issue. There's a few things that are particularly important, like the similarity of the trademarks themselves, the similarity of the goods or the services being sold, and the places where the 2 trademarks are being advertised. If there's enough similarity there, the party sending the letter could actually have a good case. No matter what you think about the 2 trademarks, this is actually a complex evaluation that needs to be made, so I would leave it to a professional. In any event, the worst thing you can do is to just ignore the letter. Even if they don't actually send another letter or take any kind of legal action for months, you need to realize that there isn't actually a specific statute of limitations on trademark infringement. Rather, courts apply something called the doctrine of latches. This basically means that if the plaintiff waits too long, such that the defendant is unfairly prejudiced because of it, the case could actually be thrown out. However, this is the defense that needs to be put on at trial, and a trial is going to cost you money, so putting your head in the sand and ignoring the threat of a lawsuit is not the way to go. Rather than ignoring the letter, you should respond. If there truly is no infringement going on, then you'll want to let the other side know that. Often, these letters are sent as a cheap way to stop a potential competitor. There's no actual legal power in a cease and desist letter. It's just a threat. So if someone is claiming rights that they don't actually have, they're often just fishing for an easy way out. This doesn't stop them from taking the next step and actually filing the lawsuit, no matter what the merit of the lawsuit may be. However, more often than not, the frivolous claims usually aren't backed up by anything, and they just go away when you stand up to them. Another option, particularly when there's some potential for trademark liability, is to negotiate a coexistence agreement with the other party. This agreement is a contract that allows the two parties to actually coexist. If they're in slightly different industries, they're agreeing not to encroach on the other party's type of goods. So for example, if there's a board game and a mobile game that have the same name, they may agree to coexist in their own separate places and not move into the other's territory. When this isn't possible, say they're both board games, then the only way to avoid a legitimate lawsuit may be to change your name. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Think about how many times there have been legal moves like this by a big company against a smaller one, and the fan community really rallies around the small creator. These kinds of things make big news on various game news sites. So there's kind of a Streisand effect that happens, drawing more attention to the game than if they had just kept going with their original name. So maybe it's a good thing. Finally, if you got the cash and the law is on your side, you may want to go on the offensive and file your own lawsuit. Basically, you're getting a court to make a decision on the issue, but on your terms. This is called a declaratory judgment, since you're not going for any damages, and this can be a powerful tool for those who can afford it. Above all, I hope that you're smart about these things when one of these scary letters arrives in the mail. Don't just let it sit there. Be proactive and take care of the situation. At the very least, get some competent legal advice. For more Legal Moves podcasts featuring in-depth, full-length interviews with great guests from the game industry, check out LegalMovesPodcast.com. I'll see you in the next segment of Legal Moves.
It's time for the Dice Tower's Question of the Week, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., in which our team of gaming experts answers one of your questions, thus increasing the odds that someone will get it right. This week's question: at what point have you played a game enough that you can let it go?
Hello, this is Tom Kendrick from the Board Game Club. At what point have you played a game enough that you don't mind letting it go? Well, I've never played a game so much that I'd mind letting it go. Even if I've played a game to death, I've found over the years, as new people join our gaming group, I've discovered a real pleasure in dusting off the old treasures and experiencing them anew with brand new players. So, I guess my answer is, at no point will I ever get rid of the game.
Hey guys, Luke from the Broken Meeple. I don't think I've ever had this happen to me yet. Maybe that's because I haven't been gaming for as long as some people, but to be honest, if I'm getting rid of a game, it's either because I didn't like it that much in the first place, or it didn't have the longevity to carry on. If I like the game that much and I'm playing it constantly, then I want a decent game to last as long as it can. I don't want to have to get rid of it. I've played a lot of games of Sentinels in the Multiverse. I do not see myself getting rid of that game anytime soon. Doesn't matter how many times I play it, because I want it to be fresh. I want it to engross me every single time I play it. If I've played something for a year and played it 20 times and then suddenly it's like, I'll get rid of it now, then, well, okay, granted, it gave me 20 games of fun, but that's not what I want. I don't think I ever feel like it's ready to get rid of a game if I really like it that much. I want to keep it handy.
Hi, Andre here from Talkers Reviews. Will I ever come to a point where I play the game so much that I can sell it with a good conscience? That is a very hard question to answer. It highly depends on the game itself. Some games have great replayability and just provide an awesome experience to play, while others are more, abstract and can easily be replaced by other games. But yeah, there is no straight answer for me. Some games I can play 2 times, and some games I can play 200 times. It depends on the game alone and what I think about it. That's it. I can't think of a better answer than that. But thank you.
This is Megan from the Four Corners of the Board, and I would say I've played a game enough when I think I've figured out the optimum strategy for winning it. It doesn't mean I'm always going to win the game, but if I think I know how it's done, it's like watching a magic show. When you know how it's done, it's less interesting.
Hey, this is Paul Owen of Dice Tower News. For me, it's not about how often I've played a game before I'm ready to let it go. I have a very hard time letting go of games generally. It's more the opposite, that not playing a game often at all means that it doesn't have much of a place in my gaming life and maybe doesn't need to take a space in my gaming library. I usually don't exhaust a game to the point of getting rid of it. A game that gets played a lot continues to get played a lot, so it stays in my collection indefinitely.
Hey, this is Sean from the Daily Worker Placement. I don't really think I have any games that I've played so much that I'd be happy to let them go. In fact, it's totally the opposite. Even though I don't play Catan that much anymore, for example, the copy of that game that I have has traveled all across South America with me, and I hold on to it for nostalgic reasons. When I play a game a lot, I form memories and attachments, and when I see that game on the shelf, all of those come rushing back to me, all of the fun that I had playing it. So maybe I'm a bit of a hoarder, but when I get a lot of plays out of a game, it's not likely to leave my collection anytime soon.
Hey everyone, Mark Zielinski, and how often do I play a game before I don't mind getting rid of it? Well, I think that is a variable answer based on the game. I guess if I had to come down to one single point, it's not based on a number of plays. I guess it's based on whether or not I get bored with it or not. So, a game like Advanced Squad Leader, for instance, I've been playing for 30 years. That game I'm never getting rid of. A game like Keys to the Kingdom, I played that a bunch of times and I'll never play it again, so I don't mind getting rid of it. So there is no great answer except for just when I get bored with it.
I think the contributors have said most of what I want to say. I'll agree with the general consensus that if I'm playing a game, I'm probably going to keep it, maybe not just for me, but to introduce it to other people. Though Megan from Four Corners has a point, that if you've lost the spark, if you've sort of solved the game and it's no longer fun when you play it, combined with it not hitting the table. If I've figured out a game but my family still likes it, it's going to stick around. But if it's lost the spark for me and it's not hitting the table, I have played it out, and then that's when it goes into the trade pile and starts leaving. So I guess my general reluctance, I don't want to get rid of stuff, but I'm getting, the barrier is getting easier for me to get over at this point. Stuff needs to leave the house.
Yeah, maybe. See, I'm trying to think of this being the reason. I get rid of games like crazy.
Right.
But it's not usually this. I games get rid of because another game has replaced them, because I just don't play it enough. I could see maybe getting rid of a game because others in your house want to play it too much. And you're like, oh, you want to play that again?
Yeah,
well,
that's gone now.
I had to make room, and that was taking up, I know it was a card game, but
yeah.
That's probably not a good idea. Again, the opinions of Tom Vassal do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Dice Tower. This is starting to make less sense each time I say it.
Yeah, I think you can't really say that.
Playing a game too much. I mean, I've gotten close to that sometimes with some games. We want to play this game again? But for me, I just then don't play it for a while. A good example is Spyfall. I love Spyfall. But we played it to death at the beginning of this year. People are like, let's play Spyfall. I was like, well, there's other games.
Yep.
And then I just didn't play it for a while. And now if someone says, let's play Spyfall, I'm ready to jump back in it.
Cool. Yeah.
So I think that's what I would do, is I would just stop playing it for a while. And then if time goes by and I still don't want to play it, then would be time to let it go. I did that with Bonanza.
Okay.
I did that with a few games where I played them and then let's play it again. Nah, still don't want to play it. Oh, okay. Then it's probably time to move on from that game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. Let it go. It's time to let this episode go. This is our last regular episode of the year.
Indeed.
Our next two episodes, it's going to be a combined two-parter where we take a look back at the year and everybody comes and joins in with us.
It's the editing joy of the year.
However, you don't have to talk as much, so there's that.
That's true. It's a really quick recording session, really long editing session.
Yeah, well, Merry Christmas, I guess. But I'm looking for that. You can find out. We're also doing a lot of year-end stuff on our video channel, so you can go in there and check out that stuff. I can never remember which top 10 list gets posted first. Like, does this one or does the video one? But
I guess you're in
Eric's will
control
only
of
be
that.
audio. So if you want Eric's opinions, this is the only place to get them.
There you go.
And maybe I'll change one. You know, that really cracked me up a couple episodes ago when Z said that there was a small difference.
In the
two Pandemic
two
Legacies.
Pandemic Legacies. And there was this gasp in the room as everyone, I got to buy the other one. I got to buy the other one. I thought that. I'm like, I've got the other one as a gift. And I was like, I need to open that one up. I can't give that away now. I have to.
Z the troll.
That was really mean of Z.
And I don't know that I've said it since the show, but really thank you to everybody at Board Game Geek Con who came up and said hi to us and came to that show. That was one of the most fun live shows we've done in a while. And it was just really fun. I got to play games with a lot of people there. Just sat down and had people come and join me, and that was a lot of fun.
You actually played games, which was unusual.
Yeah, it was. Well, I don't know what it was. It just, that convention worked. I think it's because I had worked so hard at Essen to talk to publishers that I didn't need to talk to them again.
Like, I don't need to talk to you guys anymore. I'm going to sit down and play this card game I brought with me.
Yeah, either that or the weight of my queue is starting to wear on me.
Yeah,
like,
I gotta play this stuff. Can't talk to you anymore.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thank you for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 436, was recorded on December 3rd, 2015. Coming up next week, it's the first part of our 2015 wrap-up special. With over 200 clips and counting, it's bound to be a busy, busy show. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. If a catastrophic event has turned your game upside down, find out how we can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me with assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Female sheep matchmaking services provided by Euphoria. Timothy Bickham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, liking us on Facebook, or by emailing us at thedicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network, including The Broken Meeple, Flip the Table, The Plaid Hat Podcast, The Party Gamecast, Board Games Insider, and Board Game University. Find out more at Dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming.
When have you played a game with a person enough to let them go?
Oh, well.
That's a different story,
That's a totally different topic, and one that will anger many people. Or maybe just that one guy.
All right, Sam, that's that. I played with you 40 times. That's it.
What?
We're done.
Why don't you go play something else? Somewhere else.